Good morning, one and all, and I welcome all the listeners of this video for being here for the next class on Java. From the last two classes, we have started learning about the multi-threading. So, especially in the last class, we have seen how we can create a thread and how the threads can be run by using how the threads can be created with an example in Java programming language. So this is the program where we have ended the previous session. So in today's class, we are going to concentrate on few more methods. I think we already seen about the methods such as sleep, join, and then suspend, resume, wait, notify, and notify all. Okay, so here in today's session, I want to use one more method called as stop method. For example, when I call t1.stop and at the same time t2.stop. So what this stop method? So when the thread got its execution successfully completed, then the thread will be moved from running state to dead state. In case in the middle, if we want to move a thread from running to dead state without completing its execution, we can go for stop method. So when we use the stop method, right, when we use the stop method, for example, it is the running state of the thread, right, and it is the dead state of the thread. Okay, there is a running state and then running state and it is a dead state of the thread. So normally a thread will be moved into the running state to dead state. So running state to dead state in one way, that is successful execution. After successful execution, a thread will be moved to running to dead state. But in case if we want to move the thread manually, right? If you want to move the thread manually, for example, there is a thread called as T1 inside, right? For example, there is a thread called as T1 inside running state, which is running, and all of a sudden, if we want to move the thread to T1 to the dead state, we can go for stop method. So if the stop method is executed first, then nothing will be printed on the output screen. If T1 has been executed first, then by using stop method, there is no use. If T1 has executed up to some word, and then if the stop method has been called, then we get some different output. So let us see here. So we have called the stop method on T1 and T2. Okay, so please remember the program. T1 is a thread which is going to print the numbers from 1 to 10. T2 is the thread which is going to print the numbers from 21 to 30. And main is the thread which is going to print the numbers from 11 to 20. So we are calling the stop methods on the threads which are printing 1 to 10 and 20 to 30. Okay, so as we discussed in the previous session, we cannot predict the output of the thread program. The thread program's output may be different at different times in the same, even in the same computer system. So if I run the code, okay, no problem. So, and if I see, if I execute the program, you can see here, the numbers from 1 to 9 has been printed on the output screen, and then 21 to, right, 21, and then 9, 21, 11 to 20 has been printed on the output screen. But where are the numbers from 10 to 19? We had called the stop method on both T1 and T2, but T1 has printed the numbers up to 1 to 9. So I think T1 thread, after running the T1 thread on printing 1 to 9, the T1 thread has been called with stop method. But unfortunately, without running a millisecond of T2 thread, main thread has been executed by calling T2.stop method. That's why we don't get any output for T2 now. So if you run the code again, you may get a different output. See here, we got 1 to 7, 7 and 11 to 20. So 11 to 20 will be printed because we don't have any restrictions on this main thread. We have only restrictions on T1 and T2. So after executing the T1 thread for some time, that is up to printing up to 7, right? Printing up to 7. Then I think the T1 thread has been moved into, okay, the T1 thread has been moved into, right? Has been moved into waiting state. Okay, that T1 thread has been moved into waiting state. So after moving T1 into waiting state, I think main thread has been executed. So when the main thread starts executing, we had called T1.stop, T2.stop. That's why both T1 and T2 are brought, right? Both T1 and T2 are brought into the dead state. Okay, see here. T1 has been moved into the waiting state. After moving T1, main thread has been started its execution, right? Main thread is executed up to this line previously or up to this line previously. And if main thread starts execution, right? So a new thread T2 has been created and the thread has been moved into the ready. And then immediately in main thread, we had it has executed T1.stop and T2.stop. Immediately, it will bring the T1 into dead state. And at the same time, immediately it will bring T2 into the dead state, right? That's why we got this output. Okay, now if we run the code again, so we may get a different output here. So 11 to 20 will be printed, but T1 thread has been printed up to 9 numbers. If you run the code again, you can see here it has printed 1, 2, and then 11 to 20. 1, 2, and then 11 to 20. So this is the way where we can bring a thread from running state to dead state, right? Running state to dead state without completing the execution. Okay, stop method. So remember these 3 things. Till now we have covered 2 methods: start method and stop method. Now let us work with some more methods called as, let us work with the sleep method. Sleep method. So see here, I want to, even though T1 has started its execution, I want, right? I want T2 should be executed first, which means I want the numbers from T2, means T2 is going to print the numbers from 21 to 30. So I want to print the numbers from 21 to 30. So I need to start with 21 and then I need to start with 11. And after that, finally, I want 1 to 10 numbers. So what I have to do, see here, in the ready state, let us assume there are 3 threads, T1, T2, and the thread main. If T1 has been executed, see the point, if T1 has been executed, it will print the numbers from 1 to 10, right? It will print the numbers from 1 to 10. If T2 has been executed, it will print the numbers from 21 to 30, right? 21 to 30. And at the same time, the main thread has been executed, it is going to print the numbers from 11 to 20. So this is what we have written in the program. So when all these three threads are in ready state, then we don't know which thread will be executed first. Okay, it depends upon CPU. So this moving of threads from ready to running state completely depends upon CPU scheduling algorithm. So we don't know, but we can have a partial control over the execution of threads by using these methods. What do you mean by the partial control? If you can suspend a thread depending upon time or depending on a condition or depend unconditionally, then we can have some partial control over the threads, right? Partial control over the threads. For example, I don't want to print 1 to 10 numbers, right? I don't want to print 1 to 10 numbers initially. Just I want to print 1 to 10 numbers, but I want to print those 1 to 10 numbers after printing 11 to 20 or 21 to 30, etc. Okay, I want to make the execution of thread T1 last. So what I have to do? I need to suspend the thread. So what we have to do in order to suspend the thread? We can go for sleep, or we can go for join, or we can go for suspend. So if I go for sleep here, we all know that sleep will take some long integer value as an output. So if you supply, right, if you supply 2000, that means T1 thread will not be executed till 2 seconds. After 2 seconds, it will be brought into the ready state and then it will get executed. Okay, so now T1 thread will be suspended for 2 seconds. So in the 2 seconds, if the computer is free, it is going to execute, it is going to print the numbers from 11 to 20 or 21 to 30. After printing those numbers, at last it will execute the T1 by printing the numbers from 1 to 10. So it depends. We cannot say this will happen exactly, but we can have the partial control by using the sleep method. Okay, so now listen, if I compile this code, we are going to get a compile time error. We are going to get a compile time error. What is this compile time error? Unreported exception, interpreted exception. Interrupted exception may be caught or declared to be thrown. Okay, so the name of the error that we got in by with this code is that interrupted exception. So see here, listen. When we use sleep, join, suspend, wait, all these 4 methods will lead the program to an error. That is runtime error. I will explain what is an error, what is a compile time error, what is a runtime error, how compile time errors will occur in our program, and how runtime errors will occur in our program. How can we avoid the compile time errors, and how can we avoid the runtime errors? What are the different methods, what are the different procedures, and what are the different keywords that are supported in Java programming language in order to handle all those errors? I will explain all these things during the next topic, that is exception handling. So the people who had already completed C++ programming language, they may know what is an exception and how it can be handled in programming languages. In C++, exception can be handled by using 3 keywords: try, catch, and throw. In Java, they can be handled by using try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. I will explain all the things later. Keep one thing in your mind. When we use, right, when we use a sleep method, right, when we use a sleep method, right, or a join method, or a suspend method, or wait method, all these four methods will lead to an exception called as interrupted exception. Interrupted exception. So we have to maintain the code of handling such exception. How to handle that exception? So we are getting an exception here at sleep method or join method or suspend method or wait method. So keep this one inside a block. Keep this one inside a block and use try keyword. You all will come to know about this try keyword and everything later. Just keep the things in your mind. Whenever you use the sleep method, the join method, the suspend method, or the wait method, right? Wait method, just use the try keyword and try block, and within the block you can use this one. So whenever you use such try keyword, maintain a catch block, and inside the catch block, what is the type of exception you are getting? Interrupted exception. So interrupted, I'm sorry, I is capital, interrupted exception, right? Interrupted exception we are getting. If you write correctly, you will get IDs. Because it is a class name, you will get it in the capital letter. See here, if we use string, we are getting in red color, and if you use system, we are getting in red color. If you use thread, we are getting in red color. So which are default classes in Java. So when you write the correct thing, you can get it in the red color. Maintain something called as any object name, that is space E, and maintain a block. Okay, leave this thing. So now maintain these two things, that is the try block and the catch block, right? Try block and the catch block. Within the catch block, it is up to you. You can write something, or you may leave the catch block as empty. Nothing will happen. Okay, what this try block will do is that this try block is going to identify an exception. So if we had already seen that if we use sleep method, we are getting an exception called as interrupted exception. So what this try block will do is, within this space, within the open braces and within the closed braces, if there exists any runtime exception, not only interrupted, if there exists any runtime exception, it may be an arithmetic exception, it may be an array out of flow exception, string out of flow exception, array out of bounds, sorry, and then interrupted exception, or any exception, it will be identified. It will be identified by the try block. So generally, I will say the theory behind this one so that you can understand it somewhat better. So whenever the sleep method has been executed, then the Java or the JVM has to bring a thread from running to waiting. So the JVM has to interrupt. That means it has to disturb the thread during execution. For example, I am taking, for example, let us assume I am taking an offline class. Suddenly, one attender came here, and one attender came with a notice, and I am seriously discussing about a good topic in programming. What we do generally, we stop the class and we take the notice from the attender, and I will explain the notice, and then after returning the notice to the attender, we again start the class. So here T1 is the thread which is going to execute, let us assume, for 10 seconds, or which is going to print the numbers from 1 to 10. Whenever the sleep method came, just it is stopping its execution and it is coming into the waiting method, and after the sleep time has been completed, again it is going to be executed through ready method, ready state. Okay, so here the execution of a thread has been interrupted. Because we are interrupting the thread, we are getting an interrupted exception. So whenever an exception is raised in the program, then an object for that exception class will be created. An object for the exception class will be created. So see here, when the sleep method has been executed by the JVM, it is interrupting the thread in the running state. So an interrupted exception class object will be generated. So that object will find whether there is any handling procedure of that object in the program. That object will find whether we provide any handling procedure. If we don't provide any handling procedure in the program, then object will reach the Java virtual machine. When it reaches the JVM, then the JVM will report that there is an interrupted exception with this statement. See here, I'm telling you again, when the sleep method is executed, or the join method is executed, or the wait method is executed, or the sleep method is executed, if we execute any method among these four, we are interrupting the thread which was in the running state. The thread has been executing, and we are disturbing the execution of threads by using these four methods. Now, when this method was called, JVM will create an object for the respected exception. Here the exception is interrupted exception. So the JVM will create an object for interrupted exception. Now the object will search the entire program to find whether there is a code for handling that object. If it finds the code for handling that object, it will be handled. Otherwise, the object will again reach to the JVM. Whenever the object reaches to the JVM, it will return an error, an exception error in the program. So what we have to do, or how we can handle such exception? So here, in order to handle an exception, first we need to identify that exception. After identification, we need to handle that exception. What do you mean by identification? For example, in a program, there are some lines. I think I may get the exception at these 3 lines. I think I may get the exception at these 3 lines. Simple. Keep these 3 lines in a block and name that block with the try keyword. Now, what the try keyword will do is that this try keyword is going to identify if there is an error or if there is an exception within these 3 lines. So if there is an exception within these 3 lines, the program will not be terminated. The program will not report an error. That exception, if there is any exception within these 3 lines, JVM is going to create an object for exception class. That object will be identified by this try block. So whenever an exception is there, we need to identify that first and we need to handle that next. So that identification will be taken care by this try keyword. And after identifying such an exception, try keyword will find the matching catch block. So when we maintain a try keyword, we maintain the catch block. So try keyword will find the matching catch block. So if there is an arithmetic exception here, try keyword will find whether there is a catch block with arithmetic exception. When there is an array out of bounds exception, try keyword will find the matching catch block. When there is an interrupted exception, try keyword will find the matching catch block. Okay, so depending upon the type of exception which was raised here, an object will be created for that class, and that object will be identified by this try block, and try block is going to find the respected catch block, and that catch block will handle that exception. So an exception will be identified by the try block and it will be handled by the catch block. Okay, so if you don't know which type of exception is going to be raised in the code, simply maintain exception, because exception is the superclass for all the type of exceptions. It may be interpreted, it may be a runtime, it may be a array index out of bound, it may be arithmetic, it may be a string index out of bound, whatever the exception may be, all the type of exceptions is having a superclass called as exception class. I don't know what this sleep method is going to generate an exception. I don't know the name of the exception. Then I can give simply the exception in catch block. Now this catch block is able to catch any type of exception in the program. So if you maintain here, if you maintain interrupted exception, now this catch block has the capability of handling only interrupted exception. It cannot handle other exceptions. Okay, because we had written the specific name, but if you write here the exception, right? But if you write here the exception, then this catch block is able to handle any type of exceptions. Okay, so right, so here there is a chance of exception, and we need to identify that exception. So we have kept this in the block and we have given the try keyword. And if there is an exception, we need to handle them. So in order to handle them, we had written the catch block. So if you write so, the T1 thread will be suspended depending upon time up to 2 seconds. And at the time, it will raise an interrupted exception. That interrupted exception will be identified by this try block and it will be handled by this catch block. Okay, so if I compile this one, just a second. If I compile this one, so there are no errors. So if we maintain try and catch block, there is no interrupted exception. There is interrupted exception, but it is handled by this try and catch block. This is what we are going to study about exception handling in the next topic after the completion of threads. Okay, don't worry, I will explain it in very in detailed manner. Just for writing thread programs, just remember try and catch. Okay, so whenever we get an exception, keep the statements in a block and maintain the try keyword. So when we maintain the try keyword, we have to maintain the catch block or the finally block. I will explain it later. So when we maintain the try keyword, maintain the catch block. So if you don't know the type of exception, just maintain catch of exception E. If you know the name of the exception, you can give the exception name. For example, you know that that the above code is going to give a arithmetic exception, then you can give arithmetic exception here. If you don't know which type of exception will be raised here, simply give exception. That will handle all the type of exceptions. And if I run this code, right, you can see here, it has printed the numbers from 1 to 6. So even though we have called the sleep method on this one, how 1 to 6 has been printed on the output screen. Maybe the computer is busy in performing another task. The computer is busy in performing another task. So after taking the T1 thread from running to waiting, then the computer has performed another task, and again after 2 seconds, the thread has been moved into the ready state. Right? So for example, if I take 20,000, which means I have suspended the thread for 20 seconds. Now if I compile and run the code, Just a second. If I compile and run the code, we are getting output a bit late. Let us take this as 10,000. That means we are suspending a thread for, let's take 5,000. We are suspending a thread for 5 seconds. So it is compiled successfully. And if we run the code, so see here, it has printed the numbers in a different way. Okay, so here we got some partial control over the thread, right? So this is how we can bring a thread from running to waiting state depending upon time by using the sleep method. If anybody is having the doubts, you can ask now. With this one, I am going to close today's session. If anybody is having the doubts, you can ask now, or you can put some message in the chat box. Okay, then I am going to close today's session, and we will see what is the join method and how it can be used in the program, and what is the suspend method and what is the wait and notify methods in the next session. And thank you very much for being here.